In 2022, there was a research that put the statistics of people living with all kinds of chronic pain, talking about back pain, joint pains and all, at 60 million Nigerians. However, we are not talking about pain today. We're looking at emotional pain. Some say pain is a gift and that you have to go through one kind of pain or the other for you to achieve greatness in life. But I ask a question. With the current situation in our country, Nigeria, where we suffer from lack of power, fuel, and even finance as we speak, the scarcity of money, would we say that there is a gain in that pain? Well, I don't think so. Well, today I have a certified emotional intelligence expert, someone who made it into the limelight after his best-selling book, Pain is a Gift, made it out there. It's a book that I have read. And in that book, he talked about how to understand, manage, and profit from pain. Tosin Imohgiemhe, thank you for joining me in the studio today.
Yes, thank you so much. It's my pride, privilege, and pleasure to be here with you, Amina.
Yes, and it's the Amina Atari show, by the way. And I mean, looking at your book, I mean, I've read your book over and over and over again. We've had a lot of people talking about pain is a gift, pain is a gift. But to the common man out there, to me out there, I go like, do I really have to go through pain, one form of emotional pain or the other, before I really achieve what I set out to?
Yeah, so I have a quote that says, life was designed in the fabric of pain. What does this mean? Without illnesses or sicknesses, you can't have doctors. Without ignorance, you can't have teachers. Without injustice in the land, you can't have activists or lawyers. All right, let me paint you a scenario. I remember one day I was driving and then my car suddenly developed a fault and I felt so bad because I had an appointment to meet. And while I was still trying to figure out what the problem was, this roadside mechanic was strolling by and then he came. And in no time, he fixed it. Now, what happened was that my own tragedy was his own opportunity. So if my car did not develop a fault, how would this guy feed? It's the same way you develop an illness or people fall sick and then they have to go to the hospital. If people don't fall sick, the hospitals will pack up. So life is naturally designed in the fabric of pain. How do you develop muscles? You have to exercise. How do you develop your spiritual fortification? You have to fast. You have to pray. All these things are not easy. They are hard. So that's why naturally, it's a natural mechanism of life that you need to go through pain to, bear fruit or to, maximize your potential.
Well, I mean, while some of us could relate to what you just said, how do you tell a child who is 15 or 12 that just lost her father to insurgency or just lost her mother, just lost everything that she had? Or how do you tell a mother who has lost everything? I mean, we even see what's happening right now in Turkey, where due to the earthquake, thousands of people have lost their lives. How do you tell those people to pick up the remaining pieces? For where do they start, really? How do you tell them that there's a gift in, in loss?
So the thing is, there's certain times that you go through circumstances that it makes no meaning. It absolutely has no meaning to you. But over time, when you reflect, when you look back, you begin to find positivity in it. It could be an experience. Okay, for example, someone who has had failed marriages. Without failed marriages, you cannot have marriage counselors. It is from those experiences of, having failed at one marriage or the other that this particular person has garnered information or valuable experience to now teach people. So someone who perhaps lost his or her daughter, sometimes when we go through certain circumstances, we now develop empathy in that area. I remember when Kanu Nwankwo had the heart disease many years ago after the Olympics. It was a tragedy at that time, but that was what made him so empathetic with people who were also going through a heart disease. And then eventually he now founded a foundation, to cater for people in that, category. So for someone who's lost his child or, you know, in one circumstance or the other. Later in life, you know, if this person doesn't have a child, the person could decide to, okay, let me start up a foundation. Let me take care of orphans, because I can now relate with people who do not have children. And, you know, there are also children who do not have parents. So there are certain times that at that moment, it doesn't make any sense. But when you look back, you now begin to find or connect the dots. There's a saying that you have to live your life forwards, but you can only understand it looking backwards.
Now, your book, Pain is a Gift. What inspired, you know, this write-up?
Yeah, well, of course, my own tragedies. I often say that I went through what they call the fiery furnaces of this life. And I often say that, you see, pain is relative. You know, sometimes we tend to downplay other people's painful experiences, feeling that we've gone through. But it's not about how the magnitude of the pain. It's how we react to it, regardless of how herculean or, you know, minor it is. So for me, I went through challenges in my life. Now, for me, I often tell people that I didn't I didn't come from a family where we had to live from hand to mouth. You understand? I didn't, people will say that, yes, I went from grass to grace. No, I didn't. I wasn't born with a silver spoon, but it was not a plastic spoon. So, but for me, I had everything come to me so easily. You know, when parents go through hardship, they've gone through so much hard time that they now want to make things so easy for their children, not knowing that, you see, it's in the process of, you know, battling life, wrestling with difficulties, that you gather those strengths, those potential that enables you to discover, develop, and maximize your potential. So if you take away those, you know, difficulties from your kids, you automatically kill their potential. So for me, life was easy until I, you know, got into the streets. I started working. I was a graduate of the University of Lagos, and one of the first jobs that I got was working as a waiter. I worked as a waiter, I worked as a steward, I was mopping floors, washing plates and pots for a living, despite not even coming from a home that was really that bad. But I also wanted something different.
So you decided to go wash plates and mop
floors? I
floors.
decided because I didn't want to be high.
It's not like the life made you do that.
I didn't want to be high. Well, my story is quite synonymous with Buddha. People who were the Buddhism, the person they worship there. He had everything. His father didn't want him to witness a moment of sorrow. So he was raised in a palace where everything was rosy. But there was a day this guy just scaled the fence. So he was just so curious about saying, what's behind those walls and all that. And then he went, he escaped one day, and then he saw suffering. He saw people, you know, really in poor circumstances, and then he had that, he dawned on him.
The Amina Ataru Show, Finding Answers.
Now, understanding that, yes, you always need to try something new sometimes, but not a lot of us have the opportunity to move from one place and then you get another job. Not a lot of us can come out from such emotional pain, right? I wanted to call it a mental pain, but is there like a difference between having this mental torture or having an emotional torture, especially if you just want something better, you know, for your life and you don't have any helper? You don't have somebody that could, you know, say, I'll pick you up, you know, go to this place. You don't have anybody to open doors for you. Yeah,
the mental pain, emotional pain, they are intertwined, but there's also a distinction. So sometimes you could go through mental pain as a result of some dysfunctional traits in your brain, or, you know, having some dysfunctional brain chemistry. But emotional pain is basically about our responses to the stimulus of this world, your responses to the events, the happenings, to things that happen, how you feel about your circumstances. While the mental could be how you think about it. And feelings are often much more powerful than, you know, logical reasons. Like, for example, you go into a market, you want to buy a pair of shoe, and you see a black shoe that is, you know, fantastic, but you see another shoe that is perhaps blue, and your favorite color is blue, and perhaps that blue shoe is of low quality to the black shoe. You would naturally tilt towards the blue shoe because it's your favorite color. That's emotional. But logically, you should pick the black shoe. So that's how powerful, that's how oftentimes our emotions override our logical reasoning. So that's just the clear distinction between them.
Now, there was somewhere in your book where you painted a scenario about a family that had a horse or a cow.
Yes.
And the later someone killed the cow.
Yeah.
And why I could try to understand, but I said, do you have to kill my cow for me to think outside, milking cow and making other things?
Yeah. So there are times when you ought to move to the next level. You ought to transition. You ought to leave that job, move to something better. You are now like a whale in a pond. You should move to something bigger, move to the sea. But we are resistant to change. And then just life happens. Life takes that job off from you. Like when COVID came and we were forced to move from just physical meetings to virtual meetings. A lot of people lost their jobs and they were now forced to innovate, think outside the box. So sometimes life happens that way such that it forces you to move to the next level. For example, you ought to be a doctor and you perhaps trained as a lawyer. And on that job, you've attained the heights. And you just have to move to the next level. This is not where you ought to be. You may just lose the job because there are people who you perhaps need to tend to, in that hospitality industry. And they need you, and you are lacking in that department. So life may just take that job away from you, and then you now begin to rethink, what else can I do? You try to get another job, as a lawyer, but you cannot. And then in the process, it just occurs to you that, your childhood dream was to become a doctor. And somehow you just see things happening, working in your favor. And then it's, just has a way of taking you to where you ought to be. So that's how life, as I work sometimes, things happening for us, not necessarily to us.
To us.
Yes.
So how would someone who is, very young, relate or tap into that strength without even knowing, without having any guidance? We have a lot of children right now who are either internally displaced, people who have lost their loved ones, people who don't have any other person to rely on, and all that. How do you tell that child that, it happened to you for a reason? What is a 10-year-old, for example, or a 13-year-old, a 15-year-old supposed to do when they have gone through so much, emotional pain, especially when it comes to loss?
And now, let me say that there are people who've matured so quickly in life because they had tragic circumstances happen to them so early. It's like a child who was born and his birth claimed the mother's life and he had no father or mother, to cater. Such a child would grow up in a totally different way from one who had a child and a father and mother to tend, to his or her needs. You understand? And you see sometimes in life, when we're taken away from our comfort zone, that's when we develop our wings to fly. Now, there's another thing about the society. We've been groomed with the wrong ideologies. You see people chasing pleasures, people wanting an easy life. But the truth is, naturally, children should be groomed with discipline, knowing that, life is tough. Life is not rosy. It's like you going on a journey and you don't expect there to be traffic. A lady reached out to me sometimes late last night. She was like, expecting problems in the new year. Is it not being pessimistic? Because at the church, they teach them that you should have faith and not expect challenges. And I said, okay, as a pregnant woman, expecting that you're going to go through labor, you're going to go through pain, is that negativity? And she said, no, that's the reality. It's just a natural mechanism of life. So you're going on a journey, you should expect bumps, you should expect potholes, you should expect traffic. Now, when you don't expect those things, and then you stumble on them, what happens? You have a heart attack because you're heading for an appointment. You ought to be there. You're now thinking. However, on the other hand, when people are not prepared, sometimes circumstances pushes them beyond their limits. But Marley has a phrase that says that you never know how strong you are until being strong is the only choice you've got. You never know how strong you are until being strong is the only choice you've got. People have that reawakening in life when you've believed something that was quite erroneous, and then you're faced with a circumstance that discredits your belief, of course you have to change that belief system. You have to readjust. And that's when you see people are now tested. People are pushed beyond limits. I didn't grow up with the ideology that life was tough. But look at me today. Even when I go through tough moments, and it may not
Because they
necessarily...
look at you today. What are we looking at? You just told us that you have not suffered in your life. And you are telling us to look at you.
Even when, because the truth is, even when you go through pain, it can never be rosy. It can never be rosy. But when you have this mindset that there's always light at the end of the tunnel, you will go through the darkness and you will bear the darkness, knowing that eventually you are going to see light. So that mindset, of course, you discredit it and you look forward to it, like, regardless of how long it takes. When you have faith in the destination, then the process becomes bearable. The reason why a lot of people lose their wit, lose their confidence, lose their tenacity along the way is because they begin to disbelieve or begin to lose faith about the destination.
Yeah, because sometimes when you have quite a number of people around you who tell you you can't, I mean, this, you want to become, for example, you have a child saying that, oh, I want to become a lawyer. And they ask you, how do you want to become a lawyer? I want to become a doctor. You have dreams, but the people around you keep killing that dreams. They don't want you to go to school, or they don't want to help you to go to school. Some don't even want to help you to start a business and all that. How do you tell someone that doesn't have all these people, to help them further, their life into that perfect, picture that they want? How do you tell them that, you shouldn't be weak? Because, I mean, I have been weak, in my... In some parts, not past. I have been weak,
yes.
I mean, I go through weakness practically every day, and I go, oh no, I don't think I should be doing this. I mean, somebody just did it, and in less than 3 months, the person has become big. The person has made money. The person is now talking to XYZ and XY that. And then we have people who have been doing the same thing for like 30 years and all that, and nobody even knows them.
So, yeah, sometimes you see, now what works for A may not necessarily work for B. Life is no sprint race. Some of us are, of course, on a sprint race, 100 meters. Some of us are on a marathon race. So you can't necessarily judge your life by the standards of someone else. For example, Donald Trump attained the position of the President of the United States at the age of 70. While Barack Obama finished his career, he retired as the President of the United States at the age of 55. So you don't necessarily make comparisons. And sometimes, you see, when we are delayed in our pursuits, we value those achievements much more than, for example, you have to wait 20 years to have your first child. That child cannot be an ordinary child.
Who said? I was just joking.
Was the truth now?
Yeah, I agree. Okay, I mean, in a part of, one of your book where you call it The Narrow Escape, you talked about how you got a job at a law firm. You want to take us through that other transformational period?
Yeah, wow. So when I left that job as a steward, waiter and all that, I felt it was all over. Like the problems of life was all over. But you see, there's a quote that says you're either in a problem, you're heading towards one, or you're living just another one. So every level comes with another devil. You are at level 1, primary 1, you go through the test of primary 1. You are at 200 level, you go through the test of 200 level. You are at your master's, you go through the test of your master's and PhD, and that's the way. So that was my narrow escape, but that was physical pressure, like that year. Then the next one was mental one, where I was now working at a law firm as a marketer and customer service agent, and I had to market the law reports. So I wasn't a lawyer. I had to read, Supreme Court judgments, legislation, and all those things to be able to market. And I worked under someone who was like, she made my life a living hell. But you see, making my life a living hell was a blessing in disguise for me. Because you see, prior to that time, I was lackadaisical, I was passive. I used to drag my feet. But, it was as though God put me under and said, you see, frustrate this guy and bring the best out of him. And she brought the best out of me by, always criticizing me, always wanted me to, better my best. I got better. I started to, prior to that time, she always made me feel inferior to the lawyers. But you see, I put myself to the test. I'll read Supreme Court judgments, Court of Appeal judgments, and it got to a point where we'll go to Nigerian bar associations to make presentations. And she wouldn't even assign the lawyer. She would, say, Tosin, you're most competent. Go speak to the lawyers. To the point people were thinking I was a barrister. So that was, narrow escape. But it still didn't end there because, like I said, for every level comes another devil.
Okay.
Afterwards, that was when I lost my job. I was supposed to travel out on my master's degree, and then I got duped by a family member who, took all my money away, and then I was home for about 5 years. No job, nothing. But
why did you want to travel abroad? If, practically you were, it seemed like everything was almost okay.
Well, everyone wants a greener pasture. I just felt, it's better to travel out and, get a better education over there. However, of course, it didn't work out, and have to, someone said, Jim Rohn said, recession restores resourcefulness. So you see, you become resourceful when most times we always set out to achieve certain goals, and if you had to list out the things you need, you list a lot of things out. But eventually you achieve that goal even without having perhaps half of those things you've listed out. And that's where you draw out that resourcefulness within you to make the best of the moment. And that's what happened. I started reading, I started doing things, started developing myself. And in no time, I started training organizations. I became a consultant, and then I authored the book. Yes, from there. Because I started reading, and I discovered that, yes, I'd always been a good writer. I'd always loved to write. And then I wrote my first book, and of course, it changed everything. I've been on virtually all media outlets in Lagos, and I didn't, read mass communication or anything, but I had a message that had to be put out there. So anytime you find yourself in certain circumstances, you just need to find the best. Yeah, you have to find a way to make the best of the moment. So that's just life.
So for you, really, it's, let's just say that your secret came out from reading constantly, and that was how, you decided
personal development. Someone said, formal education would make you a living, but personal education would make you a fortune. So personal education is, till you die, you would always learn something new. The day you stop to learn anything new, that's the day you're dead.
Because really, when you were talking about, written goals and all that, I don't know about you, but I've written more than 30 goals. Every year I wake up with, this year I want to achieve this.
You don't always, if someone said if your goals do not scare you, they're not big enough.
Yeah, but I've written so much goal that at the end of the year, I'm always scared to go back and look at that paper. Because it only seems like the only thing I achieved that year was to pay school fees and pay house rent.
However, you must have, you would have been pushed. Goals have a way of pushing us. The moment you set a target in your mind that this is what you want to achieve, you naturally do better than you would have if you had no goal at all. It's like saying, today I want to eat 10 targets. I want to close the sale and I want to eat 10 targets. You may end up even eating about 4 or 5. But if you had no goal at all, you perhaps not even eat any. So it has a way of pushing you. The moment you have a target to eat, it pushes you beyond your comfort zone, what you naturally could have done.
So the idea is that there's still that pain in gifts, so you have to keep pushing yourself.
Yes, you have to keep pushing
even when it
yourself.
Feels like, the life is giving up on you, but you are not giving up on life.
Life is a struggle. Till you die, it's a struggle. Plato said that it's only the dead that have seen the end of war, meaning as long as you're alive, you're on a battlefield. You'd fall sick, you'd have a relationship crisis, even when you have kids, your kids will now have problems, and their problems will become your problems. Someone would die in your family. It's not a curse, because you see, everyone who is born into the world has to die someday. So it's not a curse. You will mourn the death of someone, and that will be painful to you. Because when we get attached, someone today, in 6 months, 6 years, you've already become attached to that person. When the person leaves that company, just even leaving that company, you already feel kind of sad. How much more when the person dies? So it's natural. These things are natural occurrences. Every day, people are born into this world, and every day over 170,000 people die on a daily basis. You go to your newspaper and you see obituaries, you walk past obituaries, and it doesn't mean anything to you. But the day someone dies, someone that is close to you dies, that's when the world has become a living hell. It's just a natural occurrence. It's just life, just the way life is designed.
So, at the end of the day, the most important thing is for you to find out the profit in your pain.
Yes. So, the idea behind pain is a gift is that behind every cloud there's a silver lining. there's always a positivity behind every negativity. However, even when there isn't necessarily a positivity behind the negativity, there's always an after effect that produces something positive. It could be an experience, it could be a knowledge, it could be, for example, someone has lived the first 50 years of their life a waste. You can write a book and say how not to live the first 50 years of your life as a wreck. And from his own experiences, other people would now walk in the right path. They won't make the same mistake he made. And that's when his own life would now be fulfilling to him, that, oh, so because of me, people are living good lives, a fulfilling life.
Well, thank you very much, Tosin Imohgiemhe. Well, there are a lot of what ifs in this book. I'll pick. What if the problems are always a gift in disguise? What if your experiences are only a stepping stone to your greatest heights? Are you a doubting Thomas? A lot of what if. And I say, what if that pain you're currently experiencing is indeed a gift? It's the Amina Atairu Show, and I'm always your regular host, Amina Atairu. Until we come your way again next week, always remember, you are your greatest asset. Have a good day.